lesson. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't do something. You are in control of your life. You need to be in control of your money, and you need to be in control of the outcome of everything that happens, no matter who tells you you can't do something, which opens me up to my story. I was a 16-year-old kid when I first started my first company, and a lot of people told me I couldn't do it. There it is. The very first catalog I ever did. I mean, if you look at pictures of me when I was this young, which I think I got a couple photos in this catalog here, but I was just a young lad. And I remember this catalog cost me $500, and I had to borrow money from my local credit union. Really, it was called Cornerstone, to create this catalog. And back then, $500 to make this 2-color catalog was a massive amount of money. But this was my dream. The same thing as my next big dream, which is going to lead right into what we're going to be talking about today, and a very, very important topic. Whether you know or don't know what James is going to talk about, we're going to talk about business plans. And I want to ask all of you, if you've had a dream and someone's tried to take that dream from you, tell you you can't do that, tell you just because they weren't able to accomplish it, you can't do it. I know all of you have been there. I've been there. My father, when I first told him about this dream right here, this dream, okay, Fat Man Board Shops, that dream to create this company that I did way back when, and I got all these things, like these are some of the old graphics. You can see I still have the little stickies on them. I was a kitty cat lover back then too, but I mean, I'm just showing you, these were my dreams. I put all my dreams on paper. All my dreams started right here. Fat Clothing Company. My dream started in catalogs. This is the very first color catalog that I ever did right there. And I would just draw the pictures. I would just draw the stuff and I would throw it on paper. I would just making it all up. This was my dream. And a lot of people tried taking this dream from me. A lot of people tried telling me I couldn't do this. People close to me, family members, friends, teachers. A lot of people said, you should go get a job. My father said, come work at the factory, put your 30 years in, get a pension, be like me is basically what they were saying. I said, I don't want to be like you. I want to go my own path. And I know all of you do. And that's what today's training is really about. Today's training is to show you some of the critical things you need to do, because when I was 17 years old, and I wanted to start Fat Man Board Shops, I went to a bank, and that bank said, do you have a business plan? And I said, a business what? They said, a business plan, your business on paper, what the projections are. And I had no idea what it was. And luckily, the person at the bank saw something in me, and he said, well, let me give you some advice. Go to the Small Business Development Center. I don't know if you guys can see this, but Small Business Development Center at my local college, NCCC. Go there. The Small Business Development Center will help you create your business plan. 6 months later, here it is. This was it. This was my business plan. I mean, the fact that I still have this blows me away. Project description, loan request and collateral, company history, marketing plan strategy, personal resume, personal financial statements, all right here. This was what I created. And I had no idea what a business plan was. When they said you need sales projections, I had no idea what they were. This is a Word document. Like, I don't even think we had Excel. And if we did, I didn't know how to use it. Then they said, we need pro formas. I'm like, pro what? I'm trying to be a pro snowboarder. What is this pro forma thing? Like, is that something I should learn? Here's the pro formas that I did. I don't know if you can see them, all typed up in Word document right there. Pro forma 1 year, 3 year. Okay. Cash flow statements, 1 year, 3 year, income statements, cash flow statements. I had no idea. Loan amortization schedules. Folks, I was a 17-year-old kid. I'd never heard talk like this. I'd never heard anyone mention this stuff. And whether I was 17 or whether I was 43 like I am today, there's only one thing that changed, and that is the level of knowledge that I have on how to create these. Every business that I've done, before I do the business, I create a business plan. I map out what my business is going to look like. I draw out what my business is going to look like. I know what the marketing stuff is going to look like for each one. That's the very first Fat Clothing shirt that I ever made right there. That shirt with that little guy eating that ice cream cone, Fat Clothing, that's the one I printed in Mr. Mahalski's art class after school. We made a dozen white long sleeve shirts. That was the original logo, and it just went from there. The original business filing for Lurkin Threads, 1997. It's just such a trip down memory lane when I grabbed all of this stuff for today's training. And I just talk about that because I go back to that video, that movie, Pursuit of Happiness. And I go back to what he's saying. And a father tells his son he can't do something. Luckily, that father, Will Smith, realized he made a big mistake telling his son couldn't do something because he didn't do it, because he wasn't good at it. And he made sure to tell them, don't ever let anyone, not even me, tell you you can't do something. Folks, I'm here to tell you, and you're going to hear a lot more about this. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're too old, that you don't have the knowledge, that you don't have the money to do something, because James, myself, and the entire NCH team will all tell you that that's bullshit. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it and you learn the right things. So James, welcome to the Wealth Webinar Series. Sorry to take so much time telling that story. This is a very personal topic to me, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today to teach everybody something that I wish I had learned back then. I had to learn it the hard way. But that loan proposal, that business plan, is the reason that at 17 years old, Fat Man Board Shop became a reality. That, and my mom did something really stupid and put her house on the line for her punk 17-year-old kid, but that's neither here nor there. Without the business plan, that business wouldn't have happened. So can you give them a quick intro on yourself and on some of the topics we're going to cover today?
Absolutely. First of all, great introduction to this. So planning is such an important piece. I've been in the professional services industry for over 20 years. I work very closely with thousands of investors across the country. And I can honestly tell you that I feel the one thing that lacks when a new investor comes to us is they don't have anything written down. In their mind, they know what they want. They know what they really feel like they know how they're going to get there. But when you are diving into development and wealth, you have to be the one that has the clearest picture of where you're headed. And that's what we're going to really talk about today, is what do those steps look like? I hear a lot of arguments, some people saying, well, I don't need a plan. Do you need one? Do you not need one? We're going to talk about why you do. I always use, analogy for thinking about building a house. I couldn't imagine anybody doing that without a blueprint of having an idea of what it looks like. Otherwise, they might not have even walls or even a roof that fits, right? And so you got to apply that to your life and go, where am I going to end up, if I don't have that plan? You're going to be a wanderer, right? Maybe you're lucky, maybe you find something, but is that something that you could rest on as a long-term plan for yourself, for the business? So what I did is I prepared just a kind of a little quick presentation that'll take us through some steps. We want to talk about the critical attributes of planning, and then I want to try to bring it to each of you individually so that when you leave, you can start just working. And a lot of times it's just starting by drawing down ideas you have, setting it down. And what you'll find is some of the ideas are really good, some of them are not really good. But you want to know that they're not really good before you move forward with them, right? And too often people jump into that, then they realize, hey, this really wasn't the best. I didn't do enough research. I didn't have enough background. But now they're either stuck financially committed to something that's not working, or they're discouraged. And in their mind, they're telling themselves they can't do it, when the reality is they just need to change their mindset of how they're going to approach it.
Absolutely.
So Chris was right. I was just going to go ahead and throw this presentation up, if that's all right.
Sure thing.
Put it up here right now for everyone. So can you see that okay?
I can. Yeah. And as we go, folks, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. I'm going to try to watch the chat, but I'm mostly going to be watching Q&A. So as we roll through this, if you have questions, believe me, at the end of them, we'll get all the questions answered. So yeah, let's do this.
All right, perfect. So I want to start, really business plans. I always feel like they have three key elements. One is it's a roadmap or a blueprint, which we're going to talk about for you as the owner. But two, if you're in programs such as this where you're learning and developing, imagine if you're working with a coaching team that sees your vision the way you see it. So it's an excellent coaching tool. As an advisor, I work with over 300 investors a year. I have business plans all over my desk. So I'm constantly going back and reviewing. You wouldn't believe how many times I'll get a plan in place, then I'll go talk to my client 6 months later, and they're doing something completely different. And if I didn't have that plan to help reel them back, or at least find out why we're heading in a different direction, I would be wandering with them. So remember that planning is a great tool if you have a team, a staff, people that you're trying to bring into your business. All of these become essentially critical. The third is when it comes down to money. And as Chris was talking about, raising capital, going to banks, private hard money lenders, I always tell my clients, you're not creating the plan to impress them. you're giving that so that they know who you are. And you're impressing them that you know that you're a good investment. Especially if you're brand new to the industry, whatever that industry is, you don't have a portfolio to provide. So the only other thing that you have that would work is knowledge. And you have to really dive in and make sure that you're touching on that. So when we go through, we're going to look at, what I consider to be the critical areas. Why do we need a plan? What are the goals? I've given you my top 3. I'm going to go into a little bit more breakdown on that. We'll also talk about, we're talking about establishing financial goals. Why do you need them? How would you go about doing it? This one, of course, is going to be really geared towards real estate planning. So we're gonna dive into how we break that down, which is where knowing your market. And I think knowing your market should be in any industry, right? Knowing your market is even going beyond knowing the competition. It's knowing your audience, knowing the people that you're going to be doing business with, and where that's going to have the biggest impact is in your pocketbook when you're looking at marketing expenses, marketing costs that you can start to control the better you get to know the people that you're working with. We'll go into what a marketing plan is. Chris kind of brought that up. If you're going to go into the market, you want to know ahead of time, what is this going to cost me? What's my expected rate of return? What are the potential pitfalls? If things go bad, do I have an exit strategy that will keep me financially sound? So that the marketing plan obviously is going to be critical to that. Otherwise, you're going to be going through what we call a trial and error, which is a very expensive process. And then finally, we'll talk about how to attract capital. And as I mentioned, that's one of the most important parts of having a plan. And when you're getting into that side of it, always remember that what's being sold during any of those conversations is you. So the better you know your plan, the better you're going to present it. And then by backing it up with factual data, just really shows them that you're a professional that they would want to work with. So let's dive into the first topic. So the why behind it. So as I mentioned, we're going to jump into roadmap. I want to go into helping you guys understand when you're thinking today where you want to be, you should be thinking 3 years ahead. Some can argue 5. We found that with the way markets change, with the way the world changes, 3 years, you're going to get a lot of accuracy. And anyway, at the end of the 3rd year, you really should consider, going back in and re-reviewing. Did you hit your goals? Did you accomplish everything? If not, why? And then utilize that information and knowledge to build out your next 3 years. And it's been a very, very good, consistent pattern for our clients. And we've seen just monumental growth because of that. And then we'll jump into the capital, attracting it. How does that work? And then I'm going to also go into building teams. So building a team is just as important as raising capital. And so you want to be able to utilize the plan for a multi-purpose situation. You also might find that you have one plan that maybe has different variations, one that is targeted to bringing on great people on your team versus one that you would take to a bank versus one that you would take to a hard money or private money lender. And just realizing that each one of those have different goals and objectives, but you can utilize the same plan by just tweaking it and having different versions of it for that intent. So we'll go into the details on that as well. So number one, this is where we have to start. So you always start, in my opinion, you want to get to the end first. And that is, you want to make sure that you know where you're headed financially. Because whatever goals you set for yourself, that should literally dictate every move you make from that point. Meaning that if you said to yourself, hey, I'm new this year, or maybe I'm in business, but I want to grow, and this is the dollar amount that I'm going to hit, you have to stay true to that number. And so when you're looking at different aspects of your planning of your business, you have to always start with the question, if I go spend my time here, is that going to get me closer to this goal? And if it's not, you have to be willing to let it go. You have to be willing to say, this isn't the right move, and go back to that drawing board. Otherwise, you might find yourself going down a rabbit hole you just can't get back out of. The next thing you want to know is what you're working toward. So when we think of, say, your first year goal, you still want to make sure that it's syncing with your 3rd year goal. So there should always be an additional goal set. And what I find is when a lot of businesses hit goals and they haven't taken the time to set new goals, they just kind of stop. Their growth stops. A lot of times, even individually, they don't learn because obviously if you're aggressively growing for something, you're going to absorb as much knowledge as possible to get there. But there has to be a goal that drives that want for you to get to that point.
Let me add to that. That's called the arrival syndrome, what you just mentioned. When people get to their goal, they just stop. And that's actually a thing, the arrival syndrome. And a lot of people, like, they set a goal and when they hit it, they stop and they stop trying and everything goes down. Like, you always need to be upping that bar and increasing it. So when you do this, don't ever forget, like, this is just the initial blueprint and you have to continuously add on to this and strive for better things.
Absolutely. And that's why we recommend always having, your goal should always be 3 years ahead of you, always. Right. So if if you don't do it that way, there will be struggle that you could have very, very easily avoided. And then we're going to get into obviously what challenges are in the way of you getting there. And the one thing to know, like that I've always found to be important, I'm working with clients, because most of my clients are brand new to the industries they're getting into. It's okay to say you don't know how to do something. It's okay to say that you're not good in a position that needs to be filled in your company. Where I find a lot of people try to do is they try to do everything, and they might know they're not really great at marketing, and yet they're doing the marketing for their company. And I always ask them, would you hire yourself to do that job? And if the answer is no, then we have to look for ways to get that job filled with someone that you would hire. And we'll talk about, you said, well, I don't have money. I do it all because I'm starting with a small budget. Let me just tell you that if you've got the right vision, you can make anything happen. The one thing we have right now are tools and resources that we have in today's age that we didn't even have 10 years ago. You have virtual assistants, you have people that are just knowledgeable and they specialize in certain things that you might already know. Hey, I'm not very good at that, but bringing somebody in at what you can afford, all of a sudden you're seeing that growth and progression in your business. So always remember, there's always a way to get it done, and it doesn't always have to be you. And I'll talk more on where your energy should go into this. So when we get into the know your market, this is where I was kind of talking to you guys about really knowing who you're talking to. So I get a lot of people that'll tell me what doesn't work. They'll say, Jim, I just sent out 1,000 mailers and I didn't get a phone call. Or they did a marketing strategy, no one called them back, or they had a really low call-in rate. And it always goes back. I go, well, tell me about the person you were talking to. Give me a little bit about their history, their background. What's their income levels? What do they do for a living? Like, tell me who it is you were talking to, and then tell me what you did to connect that dot when you sent out that mailer. And most of the time, they're blind mailing. They're picking things that they never even took time to learn about. So when we're talking about your money, the one thing that should be an equal sign to that is your time. Time is the most critical element that you have, that although it's an expensive commodity, you have it, which means that you can go in and put together the right type of scenario as to what you're looking for. You can match up, just like, for example, if I'm working with a flipper and, by the time we're done with their plan, we might have done an in-depth analysis of probably 8 to 9 markets with the objective to find 2 or 3 that would be able to provide enough volume to get them to their goal. But we're talking about, in some markets, it take 200 to 300 hours to learn a market. So we're talking about a lot of time goes into it, but imagine how well that investor does when they're in markets that work. So these are all things that as an investor, as a business owner, again, regardless of industry, you control that. So you want to make sure that you understand the market, what makes it different. So if you're looking at it from, from financial goals, again, it should always be equal signs. Does this work? If it doesn't work, make sure that you identify that and move on to the next. Sometimes people get very committed to an idea, whether it works or not, and we don't need to do that, right? There's plenty of ideas we can jump to. And then you want to know from a competitive standpoint, what do you need? So if you realize, hey, this is a really great market, and I'm not the only one who knows that. There's a lot of other people that know that, who've taken the time to learn it. So you want to always also be asking yourself, what makes you competitive? Is it work ethic? Is it the way you make decisions? Is it the way that you hire teams? So the one thing that I will always strive is, as I talked about, not doing jobs you're not good at, find out what you're really good at and then really excel at that. And there's going to be obviously one thing you have to be good at, and that's running a business. So one thing I always recommend is that that's something that should be 30, 40 minutes a day. You should be spending time educating yourself on what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to be a business owner, what it means to work with staff. Now, we'll always call employees, contractors, whatever that might be, but there's going to be certain areas that you can, through an educational mindset, become really great at. Ownership is one of those, right? Because at the end of the day, it's on you. Whatever happens in your business, I'll share a few examples as an investor that I deal with in my business, and I don't mind sharing some of the headache with it. But it also taught me that where I was kind of directing blame for things not working, I needed to direct it back to me because I was in charge of that, right? So, if I have time at the end, I'll go through a few quick stories on it. The next thing we want to look at is the marketing plan. So once you've done your job, so let me backtrack. You have your idea, you set your goal, you know exactly where you're going to go. You then went in, you did your research, you kind of really evaluated multiple markets. You now know these are the steps that have to get taken. So now we've got kind of this roadmap developing, right? Now you kind of know this is my job, and your job might be finding other people. So keep that in mind, but you now know what that job is. Now we got to figure out financially, what is that going to look like out of your pocket? So you might have, if I have an investor that's in 3 markets, one market might require $500 a month of marketing budget, another one $200 a month. So you're basing it based on what you're expecting out of that area. But the one thing that I would definitely want you to know is what your annual cost is going to be. So let me kind of break away and talk a little bit about marketing and what you guys should be very conscious of. Marketing is something that needs to be looked at as a marathon, right? It's not a race. If you have a hypothetical example, $1,000 to invest in marketing, you're better off stretching that $1,000 as much as you can throughout the course of the year than doing something at one time, right? Because it's going to be somebody seeing you 5 or 6 times that gets them to pick up that phone. So when we look at that, what a lot of times happens is somebody will say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start these marketing campaigns. They start it and then they realize that they got super lucky, they got an extra deal. And now they can't afford it. They're saying, well, do I do my deal or continue my marketing? And when that kind of decision happens, they don't just stop the marketing, they lose all the progression that they had up to that point. And what I mean by that is when they start their marketing back up, they're not starting back up at month 5, month 6, they're going right back to month 0. So what happened to all that money that was there? But if you as an investor kind of know, this is my annual budget, and you strive to make sure financially you're prepared for that, you're going to be in a much better position to have consistency. Consistency drives paychecks. So you want to think about that again from a marathon standpoint. Instead of just looking at it, well, it's $500 a month, look at it for the year and go, can I cover that? What would potentially stop me from doing that? And if you find that it's not a possibility, then again, leave that idea and go, what other options would be available for me that would make me successful in this market? So budgeting is important, but it's got to be realistic, and it can't be something that you're figuring out as it's happening. So you got to be able to move quickly, and the more information you have, the quicker you can move. So the other thing that I'll leave on with this slide is also tools. Always look for tools. Tools are out there. Some of the tools are very much affordable to small businesses. But again, the more you bring in from the tool side, this is what I was kind of talking about, all these different things available to us as owners through VAs, and you can get freelancers and people that at a low cost can do work that might take you 100 hours, they get it done for you, and it's taking you 0 hours. So those are the kinds of things that you want to look at. So tools will also help minimize cost, believe it or not. So if you're putting money into really smart areas of your business, these are things that might even free up additional money for budgets, which generate revenue. So we always, again, are trying to think of that revenue model, and are we on track to hitting that? When we are talking about getting to the point of jumping into capital, capital really is what keeps it. So there's a saying out there that new blood is the lifeblood to a business. In our world, money is something we're always looking for. As a habit, as an investor, if I find a new lender of any kind, I always make that phone call, get to know them. Are they a good fit, not a good fit? But I always want to make sure I'm on top of that in my market. And so when we go into how you can do it, I always break it down that we're looking at 2 different ways that you should be thinking of money in your plan. The first way is what we're going to call it as a capital raise. So we're looking for outside lenders that might be there. For example, if we're talking about flipping properties, that's going to be already on board with you. You've already done the paperwork. You know what they're willing to do, not willing to do. So when you get that deal, it's not, okay, I got a deal and now they're going to give me a 50-page application. It's, I got a deal and now I've got 3 or 4 lenders that I can negotiate with to get me the best position on that property. So when we think about capital raise, we also call it building a banking network, as a term that we use a lot in the planning phase. If you're an investor, you should have 3 to 4 lenders, maybe a couple private hard money, all from different walks of life, different perspectives, because they're going to have different requirements. And for you to be successful, you have to control the money in your business. And how many times I run across investors that either have no lending set up, or they're looking for lending and they find one who's really, at the end of the day, became the owner of their business, because they're the ones deciding whether or not that deal is going to get done. That's something that an owner should never let go of control of. And the way you do that, of course, is by making sure that you're building that team up and determining, A, how much capital do I need for the year? How many lenders would that take? And then when you're talking to the lender, the purpose is to use your business plan to show them that, hey, I want to be prepared for the first deal. I want to make sure that you're a viable lender for my business. And then all of a sudden, you start to see a little bit of stress come off your shoulders, because you're no longer worried about where's this money going to come from, or how am I going to find it? It's already there, because part of your planning is you made it an initiative. So that's one. The second is what we always call gap funding. Gap funding is where, there's just, hey, we're investors, we run a business, we're business owners. There's going to be money coming out of our pocket. My question is it really coming out of your pocket, or should it come out of the business's pocket? So as a business owner, be aware, we won't get into this whole other topic, but you have the capability of building financial resources under these umbrellas, these LLCs and businesses, so that when these scenarios come up, or you've got to come up with $60,000 for something, you're not sitting there going, well, is it coming from my retirement, my credit cards? You can separate that as an owner, but you have to be, again, consciously looking for that type of support. Otherwise, if you're just dealing with it when you need it, you're always going to have to default to yourself. And that means you're putting yourself in some kind of position that hopefully, you do it one time and go, I didn't feel too good. I think I'm going to go down this path of building it properly into the business. So when we look at it, know that you're going to be talking to people that are smart at what they do. If it's in an industry that you're breaking into, they probably already know everything about that industry. So your job is just to match their level of knowledge and to make them feel good about you. And these are the types of things that you'll build out through knowledge of your planning, of your research, of your development, and then most importantly, of your execution. The next step there is, again, remember I talked earlier that we've got building a team. Building a team could also be your coaches and people that are trying to guide you down the path. And then you've got your actual team that's in the field with you. And one of the things that we always strive to do, at least I do, is I always want to bring the person that's best in my market into my business. And I'll have a lot of new people say, well, why would they work for me? I'm brand new, I don't really know anything. And this is where you having a very crystal clear understanding of what you're looking to accomplish, you're selling the dream to them as much as you're selling that dream to yourself. And you're bringing somebody in, you guys probably heard the term ground floor or new business. But if you go to those individuals with the confidence that your plan's going to work and that you know what you're doing, you'd be amazed what happens when you start bringing the top realtor into your business, the top lender in your business. The one thing that a lot of people forget about is they've got way more contacts than you probably have. And so when they become part of that team and they buy into that vision, they're going to share those resources. I can't tell you how many times my realtor got me funding on projects just because he says, hey, I have that. He's making money on it. He's enjoying being part of the company. So you want to make sure that part of your networking is when you bring the best, you're also going to get the best affiliate referrals, things that you can expand on. And you have a plan that you might be sitting down not only with that realtor, but with their affiliate, showing them the same plan that you have and really buying them into your business. But at the end of the day, as an owner, that's your job, is to convince everybody that you're the best person that they should be working for. The better the plan, the better the commitment. So building a team is really important. So let me go through this because I want to talk about how you should do that. Company philosophy. One of the things that I always strive is you have to be professional. I don't care if you're working out of your house. If you're going to be in the market, you want that person to think you own a huge building and you got 100 people working for you. And that's based on presentation and it's your philosophy. The big thing about having the philosophy is going to jump into core values is when you set the terms of professionalism, how you talk to people, how you work in the business, it applies to you. And what happens is when you start to live by those core values, when you start to live by those philosophies, people want to work for professional people. And you are professional by how you present yourself, how you have conversations. And I think for me, it's always when things don't go right. How do you handle yourself when you had this idea of what should happen, something didn't? How did you react to the person that you're working with? Even saying it might have been their fault that something happened. This is where demonstrating high core values, a good company philosophy, that person is going to feel bad enough on their own that they messed up, but they're going to have respect for you that you took it as a professional that they're going to want to continue to work with. So just remember, just because something goes bad doesn't mean you probably want to cut ties with those individuals, right? But keeping our emotions in control is by us having written down, not saying it, but physically writing down, what's the philosophy of my company? How does my company treat the people that work for me? How do I treat the people that work for me? Core values, that's something that I in my business, I make sure every one of my employees follow that. My reason for core values being so popular is you guys have to remember, very importantly, that you cannot be everywhere at once. You're going to have people that are representing your name, your business name, and you might be, unable to attend that meeting. Is that person living by the same core values? Do they care about the business in the same ways you do? If you don't let them know what that looks like, they're not going to know. If they're trying to decide what they think it looks like, it might not line up to your values, and you might have this kind of mixed communication when the next time you do have to show up to that meeting and they're talking about how the other meeting went. So core values is for everybody to be on the same page. And very honestly, I've had a lot of sit downs with people on my team, went through my core values, and some of them didn't agree with some of the ways I ran my business. I would like to know that up front, not when they're in an important role in my company, where it's going to affect the way people look at me overall as a business. So the core values and company philosophy, it's to guide you, but it also is to help you identify the right people in your business. There's a book out. The book is called From Good to Great. And one of the key terms in that book is called putting the right people on the bus. So when you're bringing somebody in, what made in this particular book, they had 7 companies that soared during the Great Depression. And what made them different than everybody else is they didn't hire people they had to train. They hired people that were better than them. So these people walked right into that role in a productive way, financially bringing money to the table. So when you're going through this, you guys don't want to bring someone to go, well, they're okay. I think I can turn them into who I want them to be. If that's a thought going in your mind, it's not the right person. But if it's the only realtor you know, that doesn't mean you have to use them. So like I keep saying, if the idea doesn't work out, you don't have to commit to that idea. You want to look for a better one that's going to fit the needs long-term for the business. Otherwise, you're going to go through a lot of first-time realtors you meet with the same outcome until you set those terms. You also want to have quality control in the business. This should be from a global in the company to how every single process in your business is done. Everything from how you might want papers filed, how you're documenting communication. Again, the more that you show on the level of organization and professionalism, that's going to be one of your biggest attractors of money and people. So that's why we pushed it really hard. In our plans, we get into a lot of detail on that. You want to have for example, roles for each person that you might want to have in your business. What does that role look like? What is their job duties? What are they not responsible for? Again, creating that clarity, they're going to do a better job and you're not going to get frustrated because they're doing things they shouldn't do. And maybe it's because they didn't even know they weren't supposed to be doing it. So quality control is critical. And then you always want to be positive. And that just goes back to talking. Things don't always go right. You might have big expectations that kind of get deflated. That's where you want to just stand tall as it is, just let it roll off your back. That's how you want everybody who works with you to see. And they're like, oh, this is just, we're going to get past this. We're going to make it work. And that's because you have confidence not only in yourself, but in your plan and how that plan's being executed. So building a team and business planning, building capital, business planning, they all come together. It's one and the same. And if you're lacking in these big areas, obviously you might find that you might be struggling trying to find money, struggling to get approvals, or struggling to find people that you feel meet your standards of what you're looking for in your business.
I think that's an important thing that you just talked about with, surrounding yourself with, people that are smarter than you. I know I used to always hire employees and I would, pay the least amount that I could. And I always got what I paid for. A lot of the people never would stick around. I would have to train them on everything, retrain them. And then, what I started doing, and it was by accident, I started finding people that wanted more money than what I was willing to pay, but yet brought so much value. And I remember I tried a few of them thinking, well, what do I got to lose? I need to fill this, this spot. And those people are the people that stuck around. And even though I was paying them more than I thought I could, at a certain very early point on in that employment, I realized I couldn't have my business without them. So what I was paying them was worth every penny because you hired up, you hired those smarter than you to do what you do. And it's like Henry Ford, right? He wasn't a very smart guy, but he had a row of buttons. And he would always, when he needed somebody smarter than him, he just pushed a button and that person was there. So when you build your team, make sure you don't build the team with people that are under you thinking you always have to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room because you can't get any further. You can't advance yourself without that. So always think like that. Think bigger.
Yeah, and even going further from a cost standpoint, you talk about paying more money up front. It actually costs a lot more money, as Chris said, if you have to keep hiring new people and keep retraining. But again, money is not the only commodity we're talking about. It's time. Time in getting money in the door, times on getting deals done, and your time. You're saying, hey, there's only so many hours in a day. Where you put your time is the most important because you're the one directing traffic and driving dollars. And if that time is constantly correcting mistakes because maybe you didn't have the right person in, or maybe you didn't have the right training program or do things that should have been thought about up front, then you're going to notice that, your time is what's costing you the most money. And so that's why, when you pay a little bit more, you're actually paying a lot less when you think of it long term. And anybody that you bring into your business should be brought in with a long-term perspective. And that's how we look at it, right? I want to hire someone who's going to be with me for 10, 15 years than have to rehire and train someone every year, right? Or every 6 months, because I'm just having that difficulty. And then I promise you, if you're in that boat, go look at how your plan is set up. You know, try to just sit down and recite your own plan on paper and then see how disconnected is it connected. And you'll probably find if that's one of the challenges, there's some disconnect in what you're wanting to achieve, but how you're approaching the process of achieving it, which again is what planning helps you figure out. We'll probably go through, 50, 60 pages of plan that we don't even keep in the final draft, because those were all the bad ideas. But with our clients, we want to have every idea laid out on the table. We want to evaluate it, and then we don't kick it until we are 100% that it's not the right path. So again, don't be afraid to throw things out that even you might think sound a little crazy. Lay it out, evaluate it. If you have a partner, bounce it, pros and cons. Should we do it? Should we not do it? And then get rid of the ones that don't work. Know that there's always a better idea. And what you're going to end up with is a streamline of things that just all make sense. And you also notice that it connects to one another. So it's going to be cohesive from beginning to end, which is only going to make your lives a whole lot easier.
100%.
The last part, that would just kind of summarize it, as I talked about, the three reasons planning is so important is you need to have a roadmap. So remember, step one is you have to know you. You have to know the goals of your business. You have to be able to answer any question on the fly regarding your business, especially financially, without you having to go look it up. So that's number one. You have to have that roadmap. You have to know it, and you have to live by what you're preaching. So that's to me is step one. You want to be able to utilize it, realize that it's going to have two key factors. It's going to help you build teams. It's going to help you work better with, obviously when you're in coaching programs, you're bringing in people that are better at you at what you're trying to learn. Make them better by knowing who you are. Again, if you come in with this grand idea, but your coaches don't know about it, you may find that you're not going to get there or get there as quickly. So make sure that, I should have had the build team before capital, but just something I'm a big fan of, because people bring money and people bring success. So, we're in a people business, whether you're flipping property, whether you're in any industry, it's a people business, right? Both from a customer standpoint to an employee or contractor standpoint. And if all of that works smooth, right? How many places in your life do you go because you love the people that work there? Probably go get the product cheaper somewhere else, but you just love the place, right? They just make you feel good. That's who you want to be with. That's what it comes down to. So having that right team is going to build that proper environment. And then finally, of course, money keeps us going. Remember, lifeblood is bringing new capital in, building new relationships. Again, people business. Lenders are going to work with you because they like you, because they trust you. And the reason they're going to trust you is because you're going to do something that 98% of businesses don't do. You're going to do what Chris did. You're actually going to go back and you're going to take that time and develop that plan before you try to execute it. So when you do make those initial relationships, you're not going to have to go back and go, well, I got to work on this, or I got to go fix that, because you've already done all of that. So don't be afraid to do the homework. It's absolutely worth it. And like I said, we can go in, if you guys have it, we have the ability, of course, to work with you, help you answer questions. I mean, NCH has been doing this for over 30 years. It's just what we're good at. But what we do, you'll see here, is we do provide full support. We actually have a team in-house. They write thousands of plans every year. A lot of it is real estate based. We actually bought a couple of just screenshots of what our kind of table looks like, the balance sheet startup, just all the information that we go through. A few things, though, that I'll tell you that you also want to be cautious of that we've implemented through just years of experience. The average business plan should not exceed 40 to 50 pages. If it exceeds that, there's just too much there. Most people will not read it, so it's not going to get the exposure you want. So 30 to 40 pages is what we try to strive with. 50, we're kind of pushing the envelope. But we focus on that because, again, one thing you always want to be is streamlined. If I am looking at lending money to a business and I have their plan, I need to be able to get a full synopsis of their plan, goals, financial structure within about 10 minutes. You can't do that with a plan that's got a lot of fluff in there. So you want to be always direct, straight to the point, keep it simple. And that's why you'll notice all of our plans will stay, we try not to go above 50, unless we're doing, like in this plan, we have some additional financials. Those are all subs, but the plan itself, by the time you're about page 40, that investor, that bank, whoever you're working with, the realtor, the new employee or potential contractor, should already have an excellent idea of what it is that you're looking to put together. Graphs and charts, always remember, pictures are best. People love pictures. People comprehend better. So we also make sure that we put a lot of graphs and charts in there, especially if you guys are going to run a lot of numbers in your plan, which with real estate, we have lots of numbers. We try to graph almost all of the different sections because, again, more of our lenders are going to look at the graphs, get a quick synopsis, and sit there and actually read through the financials. Usually by the time we're going through financials, they're at the point of writing a check or committing themselves to the project. But just some things to keep in mind. Keep it simple, be straight, don't need to fluff it. Again, most of the people you're giving this to probably read a lot of them anyway. So being right straight to the point just is another level of professionalism and respect for their time when they're taking the time to do that for you. But that's really all I got, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just kind of, as you're reading through, I'm going through my business plan. I'm like, wow, they've evolved. I'm just looking at it, but this was done a long time ago. And, I think the other thing too, somebody made a comment earlier that I want to point out. And they said, does everybody still need a business plan? Like, does everybody still ask for a business plan? And if that's the question you're asking, I feel like you're kind of missing it, because the business plan, first and foremost, should be for you. It's your plan. It's what your business is going to do into the future. Like, if you don't know that, then how can you articulate that to somebody else? So the business plan should always start with your desire, your goal. It's your roadmap. It's your business's map, what it's going to do, how it's going to look, and how you're going to do things. I very, very much doubt any of you hop in your car on a regular basis and turn the key and just start heading off into the great blue yonder to try to go somewhere and not have a GPS or not have a map on how to get there. You don't just aimlessly try to go somewhere you've never been. You always have a GPS or a map that gets you there. Well, same with what we do with the Money Multiplier with our mapping team. The business plan is that for your business. If you don't know what it looks like, how can you run and operate that business? I mean, you can get lucky and just guess, but this is what you need to start with, because if you don't ever want to get in a situation where you walk into the bank or you walk into a venture capitalist or whatever it is, and you're talking about your business, you're going all over it, and they say, okay, well, do you have the business plan? And you're like, oh, we haven't started that yet. You're dead in the water right there. That's it. You should say, yes, I have that. And by the way, would you like the projections? Would you like the catalog? Would you like our brochure? Would you, all those things? You should have all that laid out, because that's the visualization people want to see. And I think like what you were mentioning about it being not more than, I believe you said 40, was it 40 or was it 60?
Yeah, text-based, yeah, 40.
Yeah, 40 pages. I mean, people have a short attention span. They want to get right to what they want. And a lot of times it's the numbers. So that's what you have to do. And, I thought it was neat that I was able to kind of talk about my past, because that was my learning experience. And, having NCH and James on here to talk about this really gives you guys a really big head start. I had to figure all this out. You shouldn't have to figure this out. You have resources there. What was the text there for more information?
Let me put that back up. I'm going to add one more thing to that as well.
Sure.
Is if you have a scenario where someone is not asking for the plan, that doesn't mean don't give it to them. Mm-hmm. Right? You want to get that plan in their hand to show them where you're at. So, sometimes you have to be the salesperson that says, hey, you want to look at my plan, because after you see it, you're going to see what I'm capable of and why you're going to want to work with us. So
what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in the chat just so that you all have it, so that when it's not on here. So NCHBP for business plan to 31996. So that's how you get more information. And when you guys start with somebody, do you send them like a sample, like a template, like those ones you were showing? I know somebody was asking if there's a sample plan to review later that you provide.
So we do a little bit different. So what we'll do is we'll meet with the individual, kind of spend some time trying to figure out the process. We try not to go in, because every plan we write is so customized and different, even though they might be working with the same industry. But our process is simple. Our clients will get a 5-page worksheet. Obviously, one of the benefits of using us is not having to spend 200 hours trying to figure all this out. So they get a 5-page worksheet. I think my average client says it's about 30 minutes to fill it out. And then what we do from there is we actually start producing all the drafts. So when they are reviewing it, they're reviewing their business, their ideas, and it's all laid out. So we take some time up front to make sure we gather that. But all the writing, editing, research, development is all done by the business planning teams.
And I think one thing about a business plan is it's not something that any of you are incapable of doing yourself. The problem is it does take a lot of time. There are good business plans and bad business plans. So you really got to value doing it yourself with the limited knowledge you have, or having a professional write a business plan because they've done thousands of them, where is the value? You could do it like I did it, where I wrote it, but I actually had help. Like I said, I had the Small Business Development Center, and that was just because I was going to school there. Otherwise, I would not have had access to them, I believe, or maybe I would have, but that was because I was going to school at NCCC. So that's another thing you got to look at. If you're seriously starting a business, or serious about starting a business, or you have one, but you don't have a business plan, this would be a great investment in yourself, in your business, to get one done. I think a lot of you would have an aha moment just if you looked at your own business plan, and then you'd really have a clear direction as to where it's going. And then you just keep updating those numbers, and you just say, okay, well, a year ago, I said I was going to be here, and now I'm here. What do I need to change, cut, add, and do all those things? So that's what they do. And John had a question here. He said, James, should our actual business plan be following these bullet points, the bullet points you did, establish business goals, know your market, etc., or are these just guidelines and that we should be keeping in focus as we fill out a separate template?
Yeah, so the bullet points in this was more for your approach to creating the plan. So it'd be things that you would be thinking about. Most business plans have a standard model. The way ours has been time tested. So we actually, every paragraph, every heading and section is there for a reason, because it works. But once you go through it, those bullet points are more about kind of your mental approach of going into the process. Because once you have sat down and kind of gathered all the data, started writing down all the ideas, and believe me, it can turn into stacks of paper. Then you would just be looking to essentially organize it. So the business plan at the end of the day, the final model is organizing the thoughts that after, as I said, you went through pros and cons on, you decided this is the best plan for, my marketing, for what my company stands for, my executive summary, for example, how we're going to do business. So there is standard options when we're looking at the final, but in the beginning, this is more about you kind of getting into that process so that you can even begin creating it.
And then this is a good question. And actually, this would have been one I would have asked. If somebody has multiple businesses, is there like bulk discounts if they want to do a business plan for multiple different businesses?
I've never been asked that question, so I'd have to look into that, but possibly. Okay. Yeah, possibly.
Okay. And then what is the average cost? It came in from Unanimous.
Average cost is usually around $1,200 to put a plan together.
My God. Oh my God. I was thinking it was going to be a lot more, folks. If you don't spend $1,200 to do your business plan, then we got a bigger problem. Yeah, oh my gosh! I mean, it's literally a lot of work. And if your time isn't worth $1,200 to get a professional to write your business plan, then your business just probably isn't important enough. Holy cow! I'm glad somebody asked that, and I'm floored. I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, boy, I wish I would have just had you write every business plan, because my business plans sucked. That one took me like 4 to 6 months. I remember Kingpin Skate Park took me forever because I just didn't have the resources. I had to go search out everything. You guys have that stuff at your fingertips, all the stuff that you would need. So folks, what other questions does anyone have for James while he's still on? And if not, you guys got that number for more info. Now that you kind of heard that, holy cow, all of you should be jumping on this if you have a business, because that's I honest to God, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it would have been a lot more than that.
For nothing more, because also we don't ever charge for consultative support. So it's just want to learn more about the process or how it might impact you, we would love the opportunity. So again, we're looking for long-term support. That's why we work with you, is long-term development. So definitely reach out, just ask questions, and at least get a good idea of where you stand with your business. And we're more than happy to provide direction.
Well, that's one thing that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I've been working with NCH, all the way back to 2014. They've helped me with so many entities and trusts. But, one of the things that I've always liked about NCH is I call all the time, and sometimes I don't call the right person, but they connect me right away. I'll talk to Lisa or Raymond, and I don't get a bill after I talk to them. Sometimes I'm on the phone with them for 30 minutes, and they're just filling me full of all the stuff that I needed. And just because I work with them, they're not clicking I got a stopwatch. Okay, there's Chris calling, click the button and then send me a bill. They're just happy to help. They're so thankful for the business and for your relationship that they want to maintain that and keep that. So they're just a great company to work with, folks.
They are. Yeah, I've been there 20 years. So they're an awesome company.
Yeah, they really are. And they got one hell of a conference room. If you ever get to Las Vegas, make sure you spend some time in that conference room and drink the coffee because it's good. And you guys, I think, what did you have? What was the energy drink you had in every single nook and cranny of that place? Was it Rockstar? Rockstar.
Yeah, yeah. So Rockstar, we actually built them. Yeah, we were a big part of their development. They were just in a garage when we started, but now they're in all these different countries. But yeah, if you look at any bottle, it's our address on there. So they still
that's
utilize
awesome.
us for all that. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's so crazy. That was the biggest thing. I'm like, okay, there's another energy drink, another one. And it's just like, at a certain point, you can't have any more energy drinks. But I tell you, every division there will offer you a Rockstar. So careful.
We're not lacking in that area.
Yeah, exactly. And then somebody was asking about that book again, and it's Good to Great by Jim Collins. If you guys want, I can try to I'll put here. I got it on Amazon right here. I read this book a while ago. It's a really, really good book and one that you'll probably want to read multiple times. So I'm going to put that in the chat. If any of you are looking for a good read, that is a superior book. And how many of you just right now, just while we're kind of wrapping this up, how many of you have seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness, that video I played in the beginning? How many of you just give me a thumbs up or say yes if you've seen that movie? And once I kind of get that, okay, we'll take that as, there we go. Yep, lots of people, good. And if you have not seen that movie, please watch it. It is a moving movie, it's just a touching movie. It will move your heart. It's a true story. It's based on a true story. And I think if you're kind of in a weird place in your life or you're making some pivots, you're down on your luck, it just seems like everything bad just keeps on happening, you have to watch that movie. You just saw one little piece of it, but that movie will bring you right back up and kick you in the ass and get you out there to start taking back all the things that you've been, giving up over this last year with this COVID mess. But that's the important part, folks. Just like he said, don't ever give up on your dream. And James, anything in parting you want to say before we wrap?
I just want to thank everybody for taking the time today to visit with us. It was exciting. I love talking about it. So hopefully I get to hear from some of the audience.
Oh, I guarantee you will. I'm sure some people after we got that out will definitely be reaching out for their business plans. And real quick, folks, just like I said earlier, I'm going to post it one more time here. Copy it. We've got awesome events coming up. All right. So we've got today at 4:30 Eastern time, we've got our happy hour. So you guys can chat in your questions. It's right there. Well, I forgot the T, but today's Ask Me Anything. There's the link. No cost. Just bring a cocktail and bring some questions. Later this month, me and Steven are doing a free, and we always say that, free money school training. So there's the Zoom link for that. It's going to be really good. It's going to be all about taking back control of your money. We're going to mix a little real estate in there and a little bit of private money into that training. And then we're also doing another 3-day money school event. Now, I know a lot of you have attended prior 3 days. They are just phenomenal. A lot of repeat people come back because they just get more and more each time. It's a 3-day virtual event, and we just pour our hearts out. We bring in some of the best to teach you different strategies and different ways where you can start making your money work for you, or give you some really good ideas on how to go out there and make a ton of money and be in control while doing all of that. So those are some of the things that we've got coming up. One last thing, just going to plant the seed for all of you that are left. In August, we are doing a mastermind at my house. That's right. We're going to do a mastermind at my house, and it's going to be an experience-based mastermind. So we've got a lake that in my community where I live, it's a limestone lake, and we're going to be doing one full day where we're teaching, but we're teaching at the clubhouse, and we're going to do activities out in the lake. For those of you that want to jump off cliffs, kayak, we're going to try to get one of those hydrofoil surfboards if you want to try one of those out. We're just going to have a great time, but we're also going to bring in a bunch of high-level speakers, people that I work with, people that I pay for mentorship to come in and teach you. And we're going to do all of this right at my house. And the cost for this event is going to be $49.92. So it's not a cheap event, but it's limited to 25 seats. So if any of you have interest in this experience, okay, then let us know. Shoot me a DM, send Shauna at Chris Naugle an email, and let her know that you want to in on that experience mastermind. It's going to be in August. I think it's the second to last week in August, 2 days. And all you need to do is get your butt here, We'll recommend some great hotels. Don't worry about renting a car. Okay, just Uber, because we're going to have a car service. That's right, a limo or a limo bus that's going to bring you wherever we want to go for these different experiences. We're not going to tell you all that you're going to do. So a lot of people are like, well, what are we going to do? It's a surprise. But one day includes a lake and a lot of other things, including street tacos and some fun stuff. But we're going to do some other really awesome things. And we're going to teach you about money and experience, and you're never going to forget it. So if you guys are interested, email Shauna at chrisnaugle.com. There is literally only 25 seats available. I'm not putting any more people in my house, folks. It's kind of a very intimate setting, and you guys are going to be the first to do this. So let me know, or let her know. No, not $49.92, but that does sound good, right? $4,992. And you don't have to get food any of the days. You don't have to worry about any drinks any of the days. You don't have to worry about a car. Just get your flight and also get your hotel, which we'll help you with. And then that's all you need to do. The rest is on us. So, yep, Shauna, it's SHAWNA at chrisnaugle.com. And those are some of the events coming up. I'll type Shauna's email in there just so you guys can hit her up, because we are doing like kind of a waiting list for it. And we're not announcing this. We're not going to be talking about it at least until after the 3-day. Well, after that, I can guarantee you 25 seats will go like that when you hear all the things that we're going to be giving you for $49.92. And that is not $49. That is $4,992. So just wanted to be clear about that. Yep. You're not coming to my house for $49. No disrespect, but yeah, anyway, I'm just kidding. So with that being said, folks, thank you so much for joining us for another wealth webinar series. I look forward to seeing a lot of you at this afternoon's Ask Me Anything happy hour. And James, as always, thank you so very much for your time, for you, your staff, and everybody over at NCH. We love you guys.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, folks, we'll see you later today or on the next wealth webinar series.